My course on Martin Heidegger's Being in Time one last time before we begin this Sunday. So it's actually now today, January 17th, and the course begins Sunday, the 22nd of January at 6 p.m. UK time. I hope the audio is good. If there are any issues, please let me know. If you have any questions on Heidegger, but specifically on Being in Time, please. Or if you have any questions on the course, just let me know in the live chat and I will respond towards the end of the session here. And if you know anyone who's interested in Heidegger or let's say continental philosophy, phenomenology, existentialism, etc., maybe just share the link with them right now so they can also join in. So I will go over very briefly some of the technical details of the course and then also discuss the contents of the course. And as I said, if there are any questions on Being in Time, please let me know. I'll say it again as I've said it many times before. The first word of Being in Time is delon or delon, depending how we pronounce or the Greek here. So the first word of Being in Time is obvious, and it is taken from a quote from Plato's dialogue Sophistus or Sophist dialogue, where Plato reminds his readers that we don't know what to on, which we can translate as being or beings, it's unclear, let's say. Let's keep it very simple for now. What being means, and in fact that they had become perplexed in going through the motions of being and not being. And Heidegger reminds us that the tradition never picked up on this perplexedness truly and genuinely, and instead took being as obvious, and hence it's shrouded in darkness. There's something about from the beginning, hence in the question of in Being in Time, and the question of being that he asks, that stretches back and relates back to the tradition, and at the same time he wishes to free the question of being from the tradition, or to reappropriate the tradition in such a way that what it has perhaps seen but didn't really pick up on or didn't continue, that's where Heidegger, I think, sees his task. So he begins to ask the question of being again in light of what he refers to also with Plato, with the same dialogue as the gigantomachia perites husias, the battle of the giants for the meaning of being, or we could say perhaps also a gigantic battle for the meaning of being that he sees breaking out. So if you're new, if you're just coming in now, if you have any questions on Being in Time, Heidegger, or on this course, please just let me know. I will now go over the technical details. Maybe I'll share my screen with you to do that. And I want to, let's see, so I hope that you can see the right website now. This is the page, the enrollment page, where, you know, if you click the link in the description, this is where it leads you. And we can see here that the seminars begin this Sunday, the 22nd of January, and we will meet 10 times. And in fact, we'll meet 10 times, 10 weeks in a row. And after 4 weeks, after 4 seminars, at the 5th seminar, we'll actually discuss a film probably by Terence Malick, who's quite a Heideggerian filmmaker, in order to give you some time off from reading, but also to discuss some of the existential ontological themes of being and time. The final seminar is going to be Sunday, March the 26th, where you can present your own talk. Now, in the course you will learn, just to mention this here, the reason why Heidegger had to write Being in Time, as he says himself, he says it is an explicit necessity to repeat the question of being. Now, we also want to understand the book's relationship with the philosophical tradition. And hence, we have to understand the meaning and the purpose of the methods of destruction, phenomenology, ontology, and the ontological difference. We will consider who Dasein is, who das Man or the they self is, and we will also think after Dasein's being in the world and being towards death. And of course also Dasein's or human beings being as care. Hence we will also consider Heidegger's critique of modern ontology as mostly a Descartes and of the sciences and his attempt to provide a fundamental ontology. We will learn what ecstatic temporality is and what Dasein's historicity is, the virtuality of historicity in which Dasein indwells. And of course, we must not forget Heidegger's notion of truth as aletheia. Now, there are usually three study modes that you can choose from. The third one, the highest one, is no longer available because it's I've had enough people sign up for that. So you can now still enroll in the self-study tier and in the group seminars tier. I'll talk about this more in a second. So I hope that, so if there are any questions specifically on being in time, if you have any questions, if you're not taking the course, that's fine. Just let me know. Maybe I should mention, this is also one of the questions that I sometimes get from people is whether I teach the course myself. And yes, that's the case. So I will be the seminar leader. I will sit here in this room and will discuss being in time with you. The way this works is if you actually do choose the seminar tier, and we think, let me just see again. Yeah, there's 14 spaces left. That should be enough. So how this works is that you come into the Zoom meeting, and I'll be here, you'll be wherever you are. And we've got about somewhere between 30 to 40 people, I think, in the seminars. And I very briefly introduce the topic or the topics of the day, and then send you off into several breakout sessions. The first seminar will have actually 4 breakout sessions of 15 minutes each. So you'll get to speak to as many people as possible on the course. And once you come back, we start the hour-long or a bit longer group discussion. So you just get more of a chance also to ask me questions or experiment with some thoughts, and I can give you comments on that, but also to comment and see what others have to say maybe you didn't get a chance to speak to during the breakout sessions. So the seminars are about 2 hours long. We sometimes go over, depending on the mood, the attunement, and if so, usually we go a bit over, 2.5 hours or so. And yeah, it's a good way for you to, if you want to read this text in a structured manner that also lets you do this together with a group, and that gives you some some guidance, let's say, not just for me but also from the others that you'll meet. You get access to my course forum, which is external to the Teachable platform that you can use to stay in touch with everybody and maybe also start your own reading group. The idea, and obviously there will be, I think there's, so maybe I'll show you this, what it looks like inside the course. Maybe that's helpful, or else I just talk and it doesn't make that much sense maybe. So let me just share this screen again. So I don't think you'll see me again. I have to. Okay, so how it works. So this is what it looks like at the moment. All the lectures have been uploaded. You can see here, this is lecture 1, 103 minutes, lecture 2, 82 minutes, lecture 3, 78 minutes. So lecture 1 just introduces being in time. This will be the first seminar this Sunday. So the idea is that you come in and you begin, you listen to the lectures and do the readings, and then you have in this way, you come into the seminars, you've lectures, you've read the handouts, which is a couple pages long, and then you're ready to discuss this further with everybody and with me also. And what I've got planned for now is to more lectures to the already already out there. So that it's really even more exhaustive than it is now already. And maybe I should have introduced myself before if you're completely new here. My name is Johannes Niederhauser. I have a PhD from Warwick University. I actually wrote my PhD on Heidegger with a thesis on death and being, which has now as an extended and really updated version been published by Springer in 2021. And okay, thanks. Audio is no good. Sorry about this. This might be the terrible microphone. And there's always a bit of a delay between when I speak and what you hear. So, but let me know. I'm going to read the comments. If the audio keeps being really bad, I'm going to use a different microphone. So I've finished my PhD in 2018 and did a bit of teaching at a university in London, and have, however, since 2020. So we're now in our, thanks Bruno, we're now in our fourth year of the Halcyon Academy that I've been building, where we offer courses on Heidegger, yes, German idealism. Philipp Niklas teaches Hegel. We're now actually going to offer courses in German also. And I think now the image has frozen, which is a bit bizarre. Apologies for that. So the Academy serves the purpose of providing philosophy courses to a general audience that is philosophically inclined. You don't need to have any background knowledge of philosophy, but obviously it will help if you have some interest in it, and if you can read extended texts and have maybe been meaning to read Being in Time for a long time now and have tried yourself, or maybe you have read it already, now you just want to read it in a more structured manner. The idea is that once we read some of the most important parts over the 10 weeks, that of course you don't stop there. You continue to read maybe on your own, or maybe you start a reading group and continue to read the text in more detailed manner even. But what we will cover really are the most important aspects, and we'll leave out some of the passages or chapters that serve as a build-up, and we'll get to the heart of the matter. And hence we won't just focus on division 1, but of course also especially on division 2, being towards death, ecstatic temporality, historicity or Geschichtlichkeit, and on the virtuality of history also. And if maybe I'll tell you a little bit about the people who show up. So I think the age range is anywhere between, if I'm not mistaken, anywhere between 25 to 60, 65. We have now, what I can see, we have people coming in many from America again, from Europe, from the Middle East. So it's quite a strange thing to do, to have that many people from different places coming in, and also in different time zones. But it is always a very electric atmosphere and extremely enjoyable. And it's a way of trying to make sense also of our very strange technological time for me, rather than being completely subdued by it. I try to ways of working with it in a way that perhaps is in some sense even liberating, let's say. So if there are any questions on Being in Time specifically, please let me know. If you have any questions on the course, let me know also. So maybe just very briefly again, there's two tiers are still available. One of them is the self-study tier. You get access to all the video materials and of course everything that I add to the course now or in future, you will have access to also. And so that's at this point more than 10 hours of videos and handouts, and of course also the audio files. And that will be a bit more going as the course progresses. Or you could sign up to the seminars, which is maybe best because you get to meet the others, as it were, and you get to discuss being in time with them, but also with me, and you will have the chance to write and also to present something at the end, which truly will help you if you don't use ChatGPT to try and make sense and understand what it is that Heidegger is on about. And yes, Heidegger can be understood, and it's actually in Heidegger where we find the first, post Nietzsche, the first serious, I would say, engagement with the fact of the collapse of the metaphysical dimension. There's Husserl engages with this to a certain degree, also his other teacher Paul Nathorp does, but I think Heidegger really provides us with an access ways to the phenomena themselves, to get back zurück zu den Sachen selbst, back to the things themselves, to let them show themselves rather than with our Kantian framework that we're trying to subdue the world. So yes, there is for Heidegger an access to the eidos, to essence, and it is in that sense also, of course, an anti-postmodern program. He's certainly not a nominalist or anything like that. So what we'll focus on, is truly let's say the need for the book itself, why he has to write the text. But at the same time, we'll also go sometimes beyond being in time, because I'll allude to where we can see already in being in time that the language sort of fails, and he has to overcome, where you can kind of see, let's say, why the project of being in time is not completed. I won't make that much of a big fuss about it. It's a bit bizarre to see scholars and laymen forever quibble about the fact that Heidegger didn't finish the book. There's enough in that being in time, the published being in time that we have, and to anyone who can read and also can read the rest of Heidegger will see that it is not all fully developed in being in time. That's obviously not the case, but it is in being in time that his thinking begins, and it ignites truly in section 44 with his reappropriation of aletheia, of truth as unconcealment, which is immediately followed by being towards death. And it's precisely in the intensity of death that we get close to being. And that here, though, also Heidegger realizes something else, namely that it is being itself that is, that withdraws. Being itself is the dimension of withdrawal. And that is what the rest of Heidegger's philosophical career really concerns itself with. So if you have any questions, please let me know on the course or on being in time specifically if you have any. And if I can answer, I will try to. And so yeah, I'll lead the seminars myself, and it is eine Gelegenheit. I don't like the word opportunity, but it is an opportunity for you to read the book within a certain time. Hence, there's finitude is introduced to the entire project of reading it, which means that you can you see the horizon, you see the end, as it were, and as you see that, you can the idea is, of course, not that, as I don't claim that after 10 weeks you walk away and you're a master Heideggerians, but instead that you get into this mode of thinking. So much rather than, because if this were just about conveying information to you, then I wouldn't be necessary. It's probably easier to read Wikipedia. But no, it's we're trying to get into the mode of thinking itself, that being in time presents, and that being in time itself is a development of and an unfolding of. So if you do want to enroll, then here's the link in the chat now. And if you have any questions, please do let me know. We begin in 5 days from now, and we will be meeting every week for 10 weeks, 10 Sundays, and we begin on the introduction of Being in Time, where we discuss the first page of Being in Time, this strange quote from Plato's Sophist. We continue with the 3 prejudices about being. We then discuss the method of destruction, destruction, or destructuring, perhaps is also a good translation for that. And of course, we must not forget section 7 on Heidegger's understanding of phenomenology, which from the very beginning, I would have to say, is really different from Husserl. He goes through, we can here see, by the way, I think in section 7a, section 7 in general, his approach here to language, which is not etymological, and his approach also to method itself, phenomenology itself, isn't one that's purely historical. So he doesn't, even though he looks at the word itself, he doesn't give us a genealogy of the word, which was invented by Christian Wolff and then used in different ways, for example, by Hegel or Husserl and others. But instead, what he does is to go to the Grundgehalt, the fundamental content and weight of the notion, of the concept, and let sort of, as it let he frees something from the word phenomenon and something from the word logos, brings it back together, and in that way is already in this going through of the word. Let's method, by the way, is not unrelated to the word path. The word hodos can be translated as path in Greek. By going through in this way, he provides us with a true method that it's in itself already a disclosure of being, of the language of being, or of the saying of being. And it formally indicates, as it were, being as such already, which is here freed from a simplistic Platonism, where we consider the treeness of trees, or the hammerness of hammering. And hence these, by the way, these examples of using tools, etc., are important, at least in the beginning of Being in Time, of Zeug, as it's translated, of equipment. But this is something that we won't focus on too much, simply because they are a stepping stone to his critique of modern ontology as Cartesianism, basically, of being reduced to presence at hand and the need to access, which predicates the need for us to access the world mathematically. And at the same time, the path that we will take, will focus on for the most part, really is aletheia, is death, is care, is time, and history, or Geschichte, another word that's very difficult to translate, and I leave it untranslated in the lectures, which can be a bit frustrating, but I think it's ultimately important to recognize that there are words that cannot be translated. And I think it's especially important in our time, now that we do have such wonderfully nonsensical tools of the last man as ChatGPT, that can produce any sort of repetitious mix and match essay just in a couple of nanoseconds, and which is basically the idle talk of Das Man. So that's a great achievement here. But of course, Das Man is, as Heidegger says, is a dictatorship of Das Man, of the they self. By the way, we also have to recognize that Das Man is specifically a German, very weird, or Man is a very weird German grammatical construction that doesn't really translate into English either. So I go into that also. I also provide you with other translations of the German that we wouldn't find maybe in these standard translations. One of them would be, so for example, Sein zum Tode is usually translated as being towards death. So this zu is understood as towards, but it could just as well mean zu or zum, could just as well be understood as being with, a being with death. And it is in fact being itself. It's not. It's in Dasein's enactment of being, that being as such, or being itself, lights up or shines through. So if you're just coming in now, I'm introducing my course on being in time. Enrollment is open, and it's closing in a couple of days because we will begin this Sunday. If you have any questions on being in time or on the course, please let me know, and I'll respond to you now. Basically, if you have any questions, please let me know. And also, if you're ready to enroll, the link is in the description. It's also in the live chat here. It'll take you to a website, a platform called Teachable, and there's 2 different tiers that you can enroll in. Which the first one is self-studies. You get access to all study materials immediately, and anything in addition that I add to it, and you can listen to it or watch the videos at your own leisure, at your own pace. So there's no time limit to that at all. And if you, however, decide to take the seminars that we begin this Sunday, we meet for 10 consecutive Sundays, and in week 5 we actually will discuss a film. I haven't decided yet which one. It might be a film by Terrence Malick, who's quite a Heideggerian filmmaker. The group is, I think we're about 30 at the moment in the seminars, and I can tell you that it's people from America, from Europe, and from the Middle East, as far as I have seen so far. I know many of them, but many of them I don't know yet, so there's also a lot of new people. And it's, if you, I don't know whether you've been following the work on my channel, it's, as I'm providing courses, that's how I can continue to provide free lectures to the public. Of course, the public, as Heidegger says, is das Man. So one has to be very careful here. Is the they self. So let me know if there are any questions. Maybe I'll show you again. I know this will probably mess up the audio, okay? But I'll show you again very briefly the inside of the course. So you can see here 8 lectures, all there. Okay, I'll stop sharing. Yeah, as I just mentioned, that we'll focus quite a bit, obviously, on death, because I think that death is at the heart of the book, because Heidegger is after the finitude of time and the finitude of being. The finitude, by the way, also therefore of of Gestell, of enframing, of technology. But we will also discuss Heidegger on birth. I think that's quite crucial, because quite often that's forgotten, that there is indeed in Heidegger also the phenomenon of birth. It is not as fully developed perhaps as, but birth is mentioned. Okay, I think I'm back. Birth is not just mentioned in passing. Once we get to Dasein's historicity, birth is introduced not as the initial point or the point where it begins, but is introduced as sort of the dimension from which Dasein always stretches itself out towards death, which is this other dimension or realm, perhaps, against which Dasein strives. And as long as Dasein is, it exists gebürtig, as Heidegger says. It exists as being born. So I really want to focus also on these things that are sometimes a bit maybe not ignored, obviously, but not so, maybe not treated of as much as they should be. There's also a beautiful passage that we'll also discuss, which is on the regions of life and death, and why it is that churches and cemeteries are directed in the way that they are and have that orientation in the world the way they are. And we can see here, of course, an early pre-echo, if you like, of das Geviert, of the fourfold, of the, as I like to translate it, the four regions, or the gathering of the four regions into one, which is maybe a better translation as fourfold, because it also takes away a bit of the the geometric, mathematical connotations that I think fourfold has in English. If you're new here, or if you have been around, please let me know if you have any questions on being in time, any whatsoever. So Bruno, I can see here, Cord, and Andrew, Lewis. So if you have any questions on being in time or on the course, please let me know. I'd like to know. Well, I think what it will also be crucial, of course, and this is something that we, as Heidegger himself says a bit facetiously perhaps, that if you want to read me, you have to have read Aristotle for 13 years. And of course, that means Aristotle in the original ancient Greek, obviously. Now, I don't expect any one of you to have read Aristotle for the past 13 years, but if we do have, one needs to have the tradition present in order to be able to really see very often where Heidegger is coming from, where he's going. So we will consider Plato where it's necessary, Aristotle where it's necessary. For example, he makes a reference to Aristotle quite in the beginning, when he says that Dasein has in some sense always been spitting, if you like. It's not maybe the most elegant way of putting it, but Dasein has always been sensed, but it hasn't been made explicit. And he references Aristotle's De Anima or Perites Psyches here on the soul, where Aristotle says something to the effect of, the Greek isn't coming to me fully, but only the English and a bit butchered, but still, that the soul is the Greek, is in some sense, is somehow all beings, but not in a subjectivistic sense or idealistic sense, or not even in a realist sense, but in a truly phenomenological, ontological sense, that it is through the connection, the relationship between psyche, the form of the human being, that the human being comes in touch with everything that is, insofar that it is. So here, in these moments where Heidegger quotes references Aquinas, Aristotle, etc. If you have any questions on that, then we can discuss it at the seminars. I do address some of this in the in my lectures, for example, on truth. He points out that the traditional understanding of truth is correspondence truth or truth as adequatio. We'll also discuss Descartes to a certain degree, and as soon as, of course, the division 2 comes, and also, by the way, being in time is a response to Hegel. So being in time is a response to the, as he says, the cancellation of time through the concept. And it is precisely through this cancellation that being in time becomes necessary. Being in time is a question. To think together being and time, and ultimately to think to think being as time. And of course, time, not again in the traditional sense of fleeting now state, but time as ecstatically arising and giving. So, we begin this Sunday. I hope that you can enroll. The link is in the description of this video. The link is also in the live stream if you're here right now. If you know anyone interested in Heidegger, please share this video with them. Share the link to the course with them. Maybe they want to join us and read Heidegger until the end of March. I think a weekend before Easter, so just before death and rebirth. And we will be going through the most important sections of being in time. You get access to 10 plus hours of exclusive videos and more and counting. And if you do sign up for the seminars, of course, you get also access to, you have the chance to read Being in Time with us and to read it also with me. Okay. And by the way, just to be clear, the course obviously does not take place on YouTube. So I'm not going to be live here on YouTube every Sunday. You have to enroll in the course, and only then will you get access to the Zoom link for the seminars. And so once the course begins, you won't hear about the course anymore on YouTube. YouTube is simply there to fill the nets with fish, as it were. If you want to come in, then you have to join the course and also join the seminar tier, because that's the tier where I can answer your questions. The first tier really is there for you to study this on your own time, at your own pace. But I'm available for questions, etc., when you're in the seminars and during this time. So here's a question by Bruno. I would like to leave a question that maybe will be answered as the seminar progresses. Can you expand a little on the sense in which Heidegger takes Hegel's account of being as not satisfactory? So yeah, as I said, this is an excellent question. But obviously, you would have to be at the seminar to not for me to answer it. I can give you a partial answer now, but the course progresses only in the Zoom seminars and not here on YouTube, just to make this very clear. So if you have a copy of Being in Time, you can open it and you will see that on the second page where he mentions the three prejudices. In that case, the first prejudice about being, namely that it's the most universal concept. It's such a compressed paragraph that you would hope, of course, that this itself would be a book. But he goes through Aristotle, Aquinas, and then moves very briefly to Hegel, and says about Hegel and Hegel's science of logic that where Hegel determines, as Heidegger puts it, being in the beginning as indeterminate, and hence, according to Heidegger, this becomes the foundation of the entirety of the science of logic and hence of all the categories. Now, this is let's say, a Schillingian reading of Hegel that I don't particularly agree with. But if we take Heidegger just by himself, the way in which what he would say about, so first of all, he would say to Hegel, what happens with you is you're canceling out time. Now Hegelians probably are screaming and saying that's not the case, but for Heidegger, this is the case insofar as he's here providing an account of being, nothing, and becoming, that's Hegel, that is non-temporal, but purely logical. And that to Heidegger is impossible. Now, more specifically, what he says in Being in Time is that with Hegel, to leave being as undetermined or indeterminate in the beginning makes it impossible to consider the unity of analogy. And that is what you can find in Heidegger throughout. I go into this briefly also in the lectures, where you would have to understand the essence of technology as Gestell or in framing that is analogous to how beings appear. So in Heidegger, analogy between being and beings, while also, of course, we have to consider the difference between being and beings, is crucial. And according to Heidegger, that is what is out the window if being is utterly indeterminate, according to Heidegger's understanding of Hegel. So that would be my first response to that. And I hope that helps a little bit. And I hope that you sign up. I don't know if you have signed up. I don't recognize your name. So maybe you have, maybe you haven't. Apologies if you have. And I don't recognize your name, but I don't think I recognize it. So I think that's an excellent question, because it to me, of course, what is striking is that this is not what Hegel means by being at all at the beginning of the science of logic. And it's this incredible tension between Heidegger he never struggles with Schelling, strangely enough, but always with Hegel. And thank you, Bruno, peace. I'll look forward to meeting you. One wonders what would have happened, and I've discussed this so many times with Philip Nicholas, who's my colleague who teaches Hegel at my school. What would have happened if Schelling hadn't been the one who basically made everyone read Hegel through his understanding of Hegel? And Schelling does not take seriously that the science of logic is presuppositionless, that it doesn't have the idea presupposed, but that the idea comes about immanently. And if Heidegger had perhaps seen that what Hegel means here by being in the beginning is the purely indeterminate, but isn't being as such or being itself. It isn't so, and Heidegger, of course, himself, then later Heidegger will come back and read Being in Time again, and then we actually have to do this already now, from just the perspective or the standpoint of Being in Time, that we have to understand being as presence, really, as Anwesen. And hence he has to think being and time together. As he says, this is how Greek ontology understood being as presence, but it then then it forgot to consider time or think time appropriately or at all. And hence, that was the sort of das Versäumnis, that's what they missed out on doing. And at the same time, one would then have to say that it's not just an oblivion or forgetting of being, but it is also really a forgetting of time. That time, for example, for the Greeks is that time is considered
as a being amongst beings, that's something that is not a dimension in its own right, or a multidimensionality. So we can see what Heidegger is sort of, in some sense, up against, right? But also where he's coming from, and I think that, that even though there's a scholarly debate to be had about how Heidegger maybe misunderstands Hegel, at the same time, I'm sure, let me know if there's anything wrong with the microphone, but at the same time, I think the process of being in time holds up and is valid, because you would have to, when you, insofar as time becomes an issue, precisely because even with Hegel, spirit which empties itself into history also becomes temporalized, or becomes historicized, becomes historical. Yeah, thanks, Max and Alan. I would say that Heidegger's project, all the scholarly things aside, is in some sense a critical continuation of Hegel, which is why he has to work so tremendously against him or with him. And at the same time, you can have its negativity. Sorry, I sort of mentioned this before. Heidegger thinks that Hegel does not take negativity seriously enough. So I hope the microphone has not completely given up its
ghost yet. And okay, maybe the audio is better now. I got rid of this microphone. So but it's good to know that this little thing here, which is quite expensive, doesn't work. What Heidegger's project is, is a thinking through Seinsgeschichte, let's say history of being for now. It's a terrible translation, but let's just say. So that negativity itself is taken more seriously than it is with Hegel. He says somewhere that negativity never becomes a serious issue for Hegel, but that instead negativity is already encircled. It's already is already abgesichert. It's already secured against any sort of weird attacks that could come out of negativity. That's how Heidegger also understands Hegel, and thinks that Hegel could have been more radical in his project. So Hegel is always a focus point of Heidegger, and also really wants to overcome well, not overcome, but okay, let's say overcome for now, but to overcome the subject-object dichotomy, which also Hegel wanted to overcome, but is still trapped within the philosophy of subjectivity. That Heidegger is no longer, as soon as he becomes a serious thinker, which is why he's so tremendously successful from early on, is precisely because being in time is, even though it was misunderstood tremendously, is obviously already outside of philosophy of consciousness, of philosophy of subjectivity. Okay, sorry. So I know that Max is in the course. I recognize the name. I thought Hegel was the master of negation. Well, he's pretty much the master of it, but once you get to Heidegger, the language becomes das Nichts nichtet. Das Nichts nichtet. Nothing annihilates, or the nothing nothings. So das Nichten des Nichts, diesem Nichten nachzudenken, so to think after the annihilation or the annihilating of nothingness, that is Heidegger. That's Heidegger straight right after being in time. Of course, also when it comes to death, it's the way in which Hegel describes death in the preface to the Phenomenology of Spirit, which of course is absolutely not to be taken in any way in an existential sense in any way, because it's that passage is concerned with representation and with analysis of representation, etc. But still, here it's described, spirit is described as it gains its full life when it strides through death and accepts death and can face death. And that is in Heidegger even, I would say, even more radical also when we get to being towards death, because that is the moment of the intensity of the withdrawal beginning to shine forth, and that becomes then woven into the ecstatic multidimensionality of temporality and the finitude of the experience of being itself. So I will leave it at that. I implore you to enroll now, all of you who've been listening and everyone you know. Get them the link. Maybe if you allow me, I'll share the link again. Here it is. I hope to see you all. That question by Bruno was excellent. If there are any questions afterwards, just leave a comment and I'll try and respond. And I hope to see you this Sunday and the Sunday after and the Sunday after and the Sunday after. 10 times. Finitude must be there. And hopefully it'll lead to a reading group so that you continue reading Being in Time even afterwards, and maybe other texts by Heidegger, such as What is Metaphysics, for example, where the Das Nicht and des Nichts, the annihilation, the annihilating of the nothing is introduced first, and also the relationship of being and nothing, and even a more radical sense, because it's then stripped from logic. All right. I'm signing off now. Thank you very much indeed. Okay, not a philosopher of negation, yeah, but a philosopher really of annihilating. Negation is still directed towards beings. What we're directed towards is being in this thinking. And that Heidegger is, frankly, if Heidegger is thought of as the philosopher of being, I don't know, but even being cannot be thought without nothingness, at least not after Hegel and not after Kant either. So but yeah, you'll see that in a non-dialectical manner, what in Hegel is called negativity, which in Heidegger is found in death and in the annihilating of the nothing itself, the withdrawal of being, the concealment that is present in every unconcealment or disclosure, those cannot be separated. And by the way, when we even just get to the distinction of authentic, inauthentic, and have to realize that there is no authenticity without inauthenticity. There is no disclosure or discovery without covering over. Then you're already in a much more radical mode of quote unquote negation than perhaps you might have thought. So I'll see you Sunday. And if you have any questions, let me know. Good question, Max. And yeah, I hope to see you there. And if you, so do enroll. And if you know anyone else who might be interested, please share the links with them. And thank you for the questions. Thank you for listening. See you Sunday.